Welcome to Conspiracy. I'm Taylor,
And I'm Sammy.
and we're here to unpack and analyze the world's best conspiracy theories. So buckle up and let's jump in. As I take a rule out of Sammy's playbook, another Wednesday, another podcast.
Damn straight. That's just a great way to introduce it.
It is really good. So I kind of have like little intros here. Supposed to ask you, how you doing, Sam? We're like almost towards the end of the school year here.
I mean, by the time this airs, it'll probably be past that point, but
I think
I am really looking forward to it.
the way I calculated it, I believe this will be the episode we drop as we go to Disney.
Ooh.
We will be on a flight when this is dropping public.
Guys, I am so looking forward to Disney. I have had a countdown on our kitchen wall since it was like 90 days.
I'm very, very excited. It'll be a lot of fun.
I've been doing my research. I've been logging into the My Disney Experience app. I was tracking what wait times are when. Guys, it's like a stalkerish level almost. I am stalking Disney World. So when I get there, I will be the best Disney person. I am 100% a Disney adult.
Oh, yeah.
Mind you, I am not going to like dress up like
Yeah.
characters or something when I go in there, but I fully enjoy Disney parks, everything. And
Yes.
it has been so long since we have been there and so much has changed that I am just dying to be there.
We were just looking at our Disney pins and wasn't the last time 2017?
Yeah, which I mean,
That's
it,
a long
it
time.
doesn't
That's
seem like
8
it was
years,
that long
or
ago.
That's
Like
7 years.
I feel like 2017 was like last
Yesterday?
year,
I know.
which is so sad because I would have been 17, almost 18 in 2017, and like it was a long time ago. I'm not 17, almost 18. I wish I was, but I'm definitely not.
And so much has changed since we've been there the last time.
I mean, when we were there, they were just constructing. I think it was that the mine train or whatever, the Seven Dwarves,
For Snow White.
and that was like in construction when we were there. And I remember going, "Oh God, like we got to come back next year," and then we just never went back.
With shit hit the fan and time just...
And
you know,
now
you lose track of time.
Now I have to foot the bill myself.
I know. Being
Back
an adult,
then,
being an adult sucks.
the parents foot the bill, and it was the best. And now it's like, damn, Disney's expensive.
It's so expensive.
Well, I mean, we also added quite a bit of a chunk to ours because
Yeah.
we're doing Universal,
and Busch
2
Gardens.
parks in one day, and Busch Gardens.
Yeah, so like the bill was
Like it
high.
adds up, but it's so worth it. I'm so looking forward to it.
But it's all the little expenses that you don't expect, like, oh, you need a rental car, and
And I mean, we went with the meal plan just because
Yeah.
we've had it in the past and it is so good.
yeah,
So like, I'm not going to do that because I don't want to have to worry about when I'm in the park and go, oh, well, I want that snack. How
Well,
much is it going to cost? Yeah,
then
no.
it's like, then you're calculating on the receipts when you get back, like, how much money did we spend on food? And like, at that point, I can just scan my little wristband, get myself a meal, and be done with it.
Yep, I'm not dealing.
No,
When I'm on vacation, I'm on vacation, and I
Yes.
just want to hit my little wristband and know that my meal's already paid for, and we're good.
yeah, that's why I save my money, so I can enjoy experiences like this.
Heck yeah.
But I'm very, very excited. But yes, I believe the way I calculated, this will be dropping when we are on an airplane flying to Disney.
Yay!
So I'm very excited for that. The other thing I wanted to bring up, because I didn't get to mention it on the last podcast because you horribly took away my intro.
I was just jumping right in.
You were jumping right in.
I was excited.
But I have to mention that I love the analytics of a podcast. I love to look at who's listening, where they're listening, and I just want to mention that New York City, we have, I think, like 17 avid listeners in New York City.
That's pretty good.
My toxic trait is believing that Joe Santagato is one of them.
Oh, jeez.
I love his Basement Yard podcast, so I just, fingers crossed that, he's listening to the Nobody podcast as of right now.
I mean, he's probably like so busy with his own life. I mean, maybe he's got us on in the background. If he does, props to him. But I'm kind of not thinking so.
Right now, him and Frankie, the guy he does his podcast with,
Yeah.
they're traveling and doing shows.
Oh, okay.
So
So, they're probably really busy.
I strongly doubt they're listening to us, but you know what? Shout out to Frank and Joe.
I mean, I don't think they edit their own podcast, do they?
No.
Okay, I thought they were at that point, like
Yeah.
where outsiders or workers for them edited everything.
And
so,
I should know because they always talk about him. They talk the camera guy that does all their editing and everything. They always mention him and talk about him.
I mean, because
but
that's a process.
Oh my God, yeah. I mean, he has a whole studio now. Do you remember when he first started and he literally did it in his mom's basement?
Yeah, I do.
Guess what? We started the same way. Started from the bottom, now we're here.
We really did start in the basement. We
Yeah.
have migrated to the main floor. Just thought I'd let
Yes.
everybody know that. We have, actual chairs that are comfortable as opposed to sitting on a hard wooden chair and making my butt hurt for an hour and a half, 2 hours.
Maybe eventually we'll have a studio like him. But I just want to throw that out there that, we got New York listeners and like a lot of them.
Good.
And I'm praying that, him and Frank are one of them.
Now that we've had one hell of a long introduction, I hope you've made it with us to this point. but-
Hopefully you're here. But remember when we did the Scranton Strangler episode?
yes.
And remember when I announced that episode and you're like, Toby Flenderson.
Yeah.
You didn't even let me say anything else. I'm going to tell you that when I announce this week's podcast topic, you are immediately going to have a gut reaction as to how you feel about it.
Okay.
So I want to make sure I intro this right because I had it a certain way. It is a conspiracy theory that you know a lot about. It's one that you heavily and diehard believe in. And I want to kind of give you some hints as to what it might be.
Okay,
So
I'm intrigued.
I'm going to tell you that your first hint, it deals with shapes.
Okay.
Nothing on that one.
Like circles, squares, triangles?
Deals with shapes. Your second hint is, more specifically, the shape it deals with is circles. And your third and final hint is it impacts farmers in their fields.
Oh, crop circles.
We're going to do some
Heck
crop
yeah.
circles.
Aliens do it. I fully am on this one. I love a good crop circle. I have watched so many documentaries and I don't want to say I've done research, but like I've just been so intrigued by them that I've watched tons and tons of like documentaries, videos, everything on them, and I am wholeheartedly in the belief that aliens have done it. I mean, I've seen like where people that own farms would go out there with like a stick on their foot and like hack them down. They're like, oh, well, I made this one. I'm like, nobody is making a perfect circle with this intricate of designs inside of them.
And we definitely talk a lot about that this week. But yes, so this week's topic is exploring crop circles and the creation of them.
Damn straight. Let's go.
I'm very excited because I'm thinking that you'll have stories along the way too because I know you know so much about it.
Yeah.
All right, so background knowledge. For this conspiracy, I would definitely say it's a 50-50 split amongst background and theories. So there's some
that's pretty good.
Yeah. When I first started,
Mine
I was
is
like,
usually always heavy on background, if I'm being totally honest.
yeah, I feel like this week it was a pretty even split. Because initially when I first started, I'm like, there's no background. But then as I started going, there's
so much
stuff started to appear. I want to start by defining what exactly a crop circle is. So if you're not familiar with it, this is how Google defines it. It's an area.
Good source.
When you go out there,
Hashtag Google, baby.
well, like Google, I literally
know.
Webster Stanley Dictionary, like they all had a very similar definition. I went with the Google one because it's kind of the most simple to understand.
Yeah, it's not trying to be all scientific.
Yeah, so if you don't know what it is, this is how it's defined. An area of standing crops that has been flattened in the form of a circle or a more complex pattern. So pretty laid out,
All right.
self-explanatory.
Yep, that's straightforward.
Something else that that's kind of random that I want to note is that when you look at images of crop circles, 95% of the circles tend to be in the shape of a circle or
Usually,
a hex.
and then they've got like some form of a design on the inside.
Yeah, other common shapes are hexagons or octagons.
Okay.
Very rarely do you see anything like a rectangle, a square. Every once in a while you will, but they're not as popular.
Yeah.
So large percent in more circular patterns or in shapes similar to a circle.
Bro, I love a good crop circle. Honestly,
they're very satisfying.
They are like the coolest things ever. Although, if I was a farmer and I came out to my crops and I saw a crop circle, I think I'd shit myself.
Like, what the fuck? Why did you not pick Bob's farm down the street?
Because like, they ruined those crops. Like, they aren't salvageable. Plus, like, people have taken, like, radioactive signals off of them, and, like, they are bumping.
Yeah, there's a lot to it. One other little side note I threw in here is when I was younger, and I learned about these, I always thought that they were burned into the field. And
sometimes I can see that.
Like
sometimes
some of them
it's
look
the
like
coloration of it
Yeah.
changes because it's pressed down, but really
Yeah.
it's just because it's pressed down.
So that I learned that a long time ago that it's not like that, but I always remember thinking like, oh
like
my
they just
God.
came and like cinched it.
Yes.
You know, like when you make a piece of toast and it's got like it can burn Darth Vader's
Yes.
face into the side of it. Yeah, that's kind of what I thought.
What are those wrought irons that they stick into a cow's
Oh,
butt?
absolutely no.
Like and
But yeah,
they brand them. And I always thought it was like a branding, but I've learned that couldn't be further from
definitely
the
not
truth.
it.
So when you look at pictures of crop circles, hopefully if you're listening to this, you've hopefully seen them.
And for our new Instagram followers, we will have pictures of some crop circles posted on our Instagram page.
Yes, we're gonna push that Instagram. We need more people there.
At Conspiracy Podcast 1, for those of you that are concerned and want to pause the podcast right here and go and follow it right now. We'll wait. Welcome back.
And I'll also try to include them in a YouTube video so that way you guys can see them as well.
All right.
But they're very intricate, complex, geometric designs that tend to take place in fields. Farm fields to be specific, but they've also happened in rice fields. They've happened in like just grass fields, so they can happen in more than one place. The one thing that is always amazing to me is there's never a mistake. They're always perfect. Always. There's never a mistake in them. It's not like,
It's not like
oh,
the pattern's off by a little bit.
yeah,
Like, it is perfect. They have taken it down to know,
yes,
like, okay, we're gonna have 8 triangles on this side. We're gonna have 8
yes.
triangles on this side. It's
And the
gonna
lines are
perfectly
always
match.
straight.
Yeah.
It's like they went out there with a freaking ruler.
That's why the people pushing them down with their foot, I just can't believe.
The one analogy I like to use when I was looking this up and thinking about all of it is like they don't color outside the lines.
Yeah.
Like it's always perfect.
Yep.
Now I want to get more into some like the history of the crop circles. We didn't start seeing crop circles appear until about the late 1970s.
Okay, so
There
I mean,
were-
it
yeah.
was later.
There were some like random ones that abruptly happened earlier in history, but they weren't consistent.
Okay.
There would be something that would appear and people thought it was weird, but like there wasn't a history of it.
Well,
so
plus I feel like, I mean, in the 70s, you would obviously take pictures, but there
Yeah.
wasn't a way of documentation
Yep.
earlier than the 70s. So, I mean,
Yeah.
it might have been kind of tough that maybe they were happening. It's just we don't have documentation of them.
Yeah, for sure. So that was one thing is like they frequently started happening around that time. I will tell you that these have been spotted worldwide. However, the mass majority of crop circles take place in England.
Really?
More specifically, southern England.
Okay.
Some of
Must
the
be where
countries.
all the aliens are.
So, and I'm gonna.
Because that's 100% what's causing these people.
There are 4 main countries specifically, and bear with me, please. It's Wiltshire.
Oh, Wilshire? Yeah.
Oh, did I say that right?
Yeah, you did.
Score 1 for me. Oxfordshire.
Yep.
Somerset, and Gloucestershire.
Gloucestershire?
Sure, we're
Okay.
gonna go with that.
Y'all just gotta commit.
But those are like the 4 main ones. But like I said, they have taken place in Japan, in certain places of China, California. Like they've been
I was
everywhere.
gonna say, has the U.S. been hit? The U.S.
Yeah.
has gotta been hit.
Predominantly California,
Come to Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Yes, queen.
preferably like
Hit a
lower.
field near me so I can go see it.
No, not near me. Not
please,
near.
please, please.
But predominantly takes place in England, which I thought was kind of odd, but they have taken place worldwide. I believe one of the biggest reasons that these crop circles are still such a mystery to us is that they don't appear in the daylight.
No,
They-
not usually.
they're-
It's usually like you go to bed, your crops are
Yes.
normal, you wake up, it's there.
Yes, it always happens overnight. It's created overnight. However, it's created, we'll get into those theories later,
Aliens.
but you never see someone creating this. So when these circles started appearing, they began more simple and over time have become more complex. Like when you look at some of the very first ones that started, they definitely could maybe be played off as like a human did it because they weren't necessarily as perfect.
Okay.
And the design was like, oh, it's a simple circle. As time has
And
gone
like
on,
that was it.
yeah.
Okay.
So I could definitely see how people are like, it's human made. But then as
then,
time has gone on, these things are so crazy intricate.
and like super cool.
I don't even have words for some of them that I've seen.
Although like if an alien tried to like beam me up, I think I'd crap myself.
I don't want that. I don't.
I would love to see one being made as long as you
Oh, a
could
crop circle?
as long as you could assure me that like the alien wasn't gonna come get me.
But I feel like if they're coming down here, they're gonna like take you if you see it.
I mean, they're probably walking among us in everyday life, so I mean,
I would
it
have to
is what it is. But I don't want to be a test subject.
Mm-mm.
It's
Fuck
not
no.
my idea of a good time.
I would have to agree. That just sounds terrible.
Sorry if I'm ruining one of your theories because I am a full believer of aliens making crop circles.
No, you're good. You're good. So another thing I would like to highlight is how exactly these crops are flattened. Because when they say flattened, I would assumed broken beyond repair. But that's not the
No,
case.
really, I think they're just pushed over.
They're literally blown. It looks like they're blown over by strong wind. The crop is fully intact. That
Yeah.
if you went out and pushed it up, it would still continue to grow. There's not enough damage to go, it's a lost cause. Granted, it kind of is a lost cause from the standpoint of you're going to have to go out there and straighten everything if you
Every
want
single,
it
and some of these are so complex that it would take
forever.
days.
So long. So like that was one thing that amazed me is I always thought, okay, if it wasn't burned into it, I'm like, it's pushed down and snapped off at the
Yeah,
thing.
like it's not salvageable.
Yeah, so like it could be
Which I mean,
salvageable,
they're
but
obviously being careful enough that it's just pushing it over
which leads me to think maybe it's like just a really strong wind.
from their spaceship.
Just like pushing it. I would think if you're hovering, obviously you're using some sort of aerodynamic wind force.
You'd think.
I would assume. I thought that was kind of a neat little piece of information is that like the crops are still fully intact. You never normally find it broken unless it's made by human.
Oh, really?
We'll get into that in a little bit. So
When they go
here,
out there, whack it with their foot.
so here's where we're going to begin to talk about the how. How do these crop circles appear? How are they created? This is where we're going to jump into some of those theories about the creation of crop circles.
Theories.
Theory number 1, and let me tell you, it's kind of hard for me to jump in and buy into this one, but
So it's not aliens.
it's not aliens. Theory
Okay.
number 1 is not aliens.
How many theories are there?
3.
Okay.
The first one, I guess for some people I could see how they believe it, but I I have a hard time getting on board with
Is
this.
it the people of Atlantis?
No.
Okay.
I wish, but it is not. Theory number 1 is it's Mother Earth. So, essentially Earth, because for some reason we always refer to Earth as a woman.
Okay.
Mother Earth is communicating with us.
That's fucked up.
Any other thoughts other than that?
Wouldn't Mother Earth just spell out, "Hey, I need help. Stop burning my world.
So essentially,
We need a new plague."
theory number 1 is saying that
Mother Earth is sending us communication through
Yeah.
geometric patterns.
she's talking to us. I'll go a little more in depth
I
here.
wish she could just spell out a sentence with her crops.
I don't know what to tell you there. I did watch 7 or 8 different videos on this, and there are multiple people that talk about this theory.
Where Mother Earth is talking.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there, I guess, like, if you can get on board, maybe there's some convincing evidence.
Okay.
But a lot of the videos I watched talked about these orb-like things.
Bro, have you seen footage?
Yes.
Oh.
We're going to talk about that here.
My God. We should just jump to aliens because I got a lot to say.
Well, the orbs are not aliens.
Okay.
That's what they're saying.
Okay.
Okay. There are videos of these orb-like things, and these orb-like things fly over the fields, and as they're flying over the fields or hovering over the fields, they start to create these patterns.
I know, it's crazy. I've seen it.
It's weird.
But I've always I've always seen the orbs associated with aliens.
See, when you listen to people that
They are saying it's
research
Mother
this,
Earth.
they say this has nothing to do with aliens, that this is Mother Earth communicating with us. The reason they say this is because these orbs, and I want to make sure I get this right, the way I had it described from videos is these orbs are described as a compression of certain materials that are stacked on top of one another, which create the orb-like object. Now, when you watch these videos and these researchers, scientists, I don't know what you want to call them, when they talk about these materials, conspiracy theorists, yeah, that's probably the
That's
perfect.
essentially what they are.
When they talk about these materials,
Yeah.
they can't tell you what the materials are. They just say it's a chemical. It's a chemical material and it's coming together to create the orb.
So it's like trying to explain a ghost.
Yes. Essentially, that's what it is.
It's a spirit that creates the orb that you're seeing.
Yeah, they say that these certain materials are stacked on top
Like
of one another.
energies that are
It's
forming the orb in a way.
I feel like that'd be a better way to say it. These
Okay.
energies. But I'm like,
That's kind of tough.
even when these people describe it in these videos, that when they talk about these orbs things,
Like they've got nothing to.
they have nothing to back it up, and they themselves don't seem fully convinced.
Okay.
Like, they're talking about it going, yeah, these materials, and like they stack on top of one another, and like they create this orb. And I'm like, but like, what materials? And how do you know they're stacking? Like, have you taken apart an orb and known like there's materials in it and they're stacking?
Well, and like, why would you always explain it as the materials are stacked together? Wouldn't you just be like, these materials come together and create the orb?
Especially because as I watched the one video, the one person goes, have you seen the stacking take place? And they're like, no, we just know it's stacking.
Okay.
Like, what do you mean?
Yeah, I don't really get that.
That was kind of weird for me. That was kind of a pitfall for me, is like, what are the materials? You've never witnessed it happening, so how do you know it's happening? It just,
Well, and how do they know it's coming from Mother Earth?
that was another thing.
Because it's here on Earth, but I'm like, let's say for those people that believe aliens are real,
Mhm.
they technically aren't from this Earth. They're
Yeah.
coming here and
Yeah.
they're in our atmosphere, but they're not from here.
Yeah. So it was
So
just,
I mean, like, there's a lot of unknowns, which I mean, that's kind of with everything, but
they essentially just kind of really suggested that Mother Earth is sending these
is
materials.
making the orbs and they're
Yes.
making the crop circles.
She's sending these orb-like objects to make the crop circles to communicate with us as humans, which
In a language that we can't understand.
I'm like, yeah. And she makes patterns, so I'm like, okay.
Okay, like, that's whatever.
So for a second, let's just say we buy this, that this is how it's created. The videos of them are almost too perfect to be true.
Bro, I love the videos.
The videos are satisfying, but when you watch them, doesn't it almost look too perfect? Like maybe edited? We've never, like,
well, I've only ever seen them as though they were talking about aliens.
see,
As like a UFO that you're seeing. I've never heard of the orb theory.
yeah, the orb theory plays into the Mother Earth thing, and it looks like a laser printer. Like, have you ever seen a credit card get engraved? Or like a metal cup get engraved?
Yeah.
That is literally what these orbs look like. It's like printing into these fields. And granted, even if we buy into it, holy shit, that's magnificent. It is creating a perfect picture. And these are perfect drawings. So, I mean, part of me is like, okay, yeah, maybe I can buy into the orb thing because they are creating the perfect crop circle.
Yeah.
But I just kind of sit there and
Mother Earth needs to update her printing system then.
I just,
Because if she's still doing the zzz, 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 zzz Where it goes
And
back and forth.
that's what it looks like as it's printing.
Yeah.
It literally, you see it just start to develop, and I don't think the printing of it in the field is what looks weird, it's the orb itself.
Okay.
That I'm like, it just, something seems a little off. Like I said, it's kind of a double-edged sword. It's like the circles are perfect and they've always been perfect, so it makes sense that they'd be perfectly created, but I guess it just seems
Weird.
just too perfect to be true. One other piece of evidence I want to include here is that when these circles do appear, that specific crop field tends to thrive. The crops grow faster, they grow stronger, they grow in bigger bulk.
With the orb theory?
Yes.
Okay.
So they're saying that Mother Earth is sending us a successful crop. It's one of her ways of communicating,
Is it the crops around the crop circle, or do the crops that they have destroyed come back better?
it's the entire field.
Okay.
So like where the circle is and the entire rest of the field just thrives that season. So like Mother Earth is telling us this is a great crop. We're rewarding you for something you have done. They also talked about like people will go and meditate in these crop circles and they feel their energy change, and I don't know, just kind of a weird theory for me.
All the power to you. Guess if that's your aura,
Go for it.
go find your zen.
Theory number 2 is farmers.
I have seen this one.
Yeah,
Where they go do it, and I'm like, what's the point?
Yeah, it's a complicated theory for me. There are convincing pieces of evidence here.
Well, like they showed, because I watched a documentary on it, and they
Yeah.
showed like you almost like put like a ski on your foot, but
Stop
it's
talking.
sideways. Oh, okay.
We're gonna talk about that.
Okay, go ahead.
But yeah, so we get to that. So
Okay.
there is convincing evidence of this could happen, but there's also some loopholes here too that I'm like, we'll
Okay.
get to that. So the year is 1991, and there's 2 farmers, or 2 individuals. I guess I don't really know if they were farmers. We have Doug Bauer and Dave Trolley, and they confessed to creating very simple and plain crop circles over the years.
Yep, I've seen them.
Very popular men. And they came out in 1991 saying that, and they said that since the late 1970s when these started appearing, they're like, we take credit for all of them. They're like, we've made over 200 plus crop circles, but guess what? By this point in time, there had already been 15,000 plus crop circles reported.
Holy smokes, that's a lot.
So don't give me this whole
That they made all of them.
like that's a pitfall for me. Is like you're saying, yes, we've made over 200. Well, guess what, boys? Thousands have been reported at this point. So I just thought it was kind of weird that like they took credit for about 200 of them.
And it's like at that point there'd been so many.
There had been thousands.
And it's us. We did it.
The one thing with this is I didn't have the year in here. There was one in Australia. They claimed that there was like this UFO sighting, and after there was this sighting, they had noticed in a lagoon that all the reeds in the lagoon were pressed into a shape. That flew, and people were like, "Oh my gosh." And they said that was kind of their inspiration to start creating these things in farm fields themselves.
Okay.
So they took that, they went with it, and their design started very, very simple. Like as simple as just a circle in a field.
Okay.
And it was kind of like they were playing off the UFO sighting in Australia, but they were doing it in England.
Okay.
So they're like, oh God, like these aliens, and they're really buying into it.
They've traveled here.
Yeah, like media attention was
huge.
huge on this. It gained traction and started moving. One thing you'll notice in these 2 farmers' designs is they had lots of broken crops. It wasn't just bent over like we saw or heard about in the other ones.
Because they're hacking it with a piece of wood.
They were going in and like you were trying to say earlier, they take a board and they take rope and they
Yep.
essentially just use force of human and push the crops down.
Yeah, it's like a sideways ski that they hold on both sides.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
I
they
remember
push
that.
it down. And the thing is, it leaves for human error where we can snap the crop and kill it.
Correct. And like I don't feel like it's gonna be as perfect of a circle
Yes.
because the size of your board is gonna fluctuate. If you don't take a perfect stride, it's gonna
Yes.
fluctuate. So like
Yep.
there's gonna be not a perfect crop circle like we see at other times.
Yeah. And that is one thing that when you looked at their designs,
And you look at pictures of theirs versus ones that have been done elsewhere, and you
Yes.
can definitely notice a difference.
there is a difference.
But they look very, very similar. Like I
And
can
they-
see how you could confuse them for
Yeah.
the same thing.
And they did a decent job.
Like for making a perfect circle, I was very impressed.
I'm
like
not-
they did a pretty
Yeah,
darn good job.
I'm not docking them on that. I thought they did just fine. But when you compare it to one that they might not have created,
Yeah.
you can see there's differences there. And they're, like I said, theirs started very simple. And over time, they did get a little more complex, but nothing
But not compared to
the complexity
ones
we have.
we've seen elsewhere.
Yeah, for sure. But then again, when I look at, okay, can humans be doing this? Yes, we've had humans go, it's me, I'm doing it.
Well, and like, and they've also showed us techniques for how they could do it. But like you
Yes.
said, the broken crops for them, there
Yeah.
were tons of broken crops. For
Mhm.
these other ones that I guess they claim to make all of them, but for
Yeah.
ones that they actually did not make, the crops were just blown over.
They
and
were just,
still
like-
perfectly
Like
intact.
bent. Yeah. So like I said, it kind of leaves some lingering suspicion and some questions. So like you aren't able to complete these intricate designs in a single night. I'm sorry, you
No
can't.
way.
There's no possible
Especially
way.
with only 2 guys.
Yeah.
Now maybe if you had like 20 people.
Yes. But even then, you're doing it all at night. And the other note I have in here is you're doing it in the dark.
Yeah.
You're not going to bring out huge like stadium lights to set up to see it because one, it's going to draw attention, and two, it's going to leave indents of where you had these huge lights set up.
Yeah.
It's just not a possibility. And I'm sorry, a little headlamp is not going to be enough for you to make sure that you're doing it perfectly.
Do we know, were these done in like cornfields or were these done in like hay fields?
Cornfields, wheat fields, hay fields, rice fields, grass fields.
Okay, because some of them, like if you're doing like a hay field,
Mm-hmm.
like hay is pretty closely planted.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like you would see a path of somebody walking out to the field.
Exactly.
Were there those with those 2 guys?
Every once in a while, you'd kind of see like maybe
or could
where
they
someone
kind of
could
cover
have.
their tracks? Like in a cornfield, I can understand because you can walk between
Yeah.
the corn stalks.
Yep.
But with a hayfield, I think
It's
you would
thick.
see like a little teeny packed line of where they got in.
And you can definitely see on some of them, I don't know necessarily about these 2 men, but just human created ones in general.
Yeah.
You can definitely see where someone might have entered.
Okay.
They've tried to cover it up, you can tell, but there's always something like, oh, maybe
A
that could have been
a little
path.
off.
Yeah. So yeah, I think the biggest piece of that is like you're not creating these intricate designs overnight. Like it's an intense design, and like you said, even if you had a lot of people, oh, here's my thought that I was going to add. How do you know if you're creating it perfectly? Do you have someone in a helicopter above you?
That's my thing. I'm like, do you have somebody up there like talking to you on a walkie-talkie? Like, move 4 feet to the
Yeah.
right because you're missing a little bit.
'Cause
Or especially once they start doing more intricate designs and like you're not just doing a circle.
Mm-hmm.
How do you know that like, okay, this triangle is set up in that right spot and this
Yep.
triangle is set up in this correct spot? Like I wouldn't.
That, and on top of the fact that when they go out there, these crops tend to be fully grown, which is taller than a human.
Yeah, so it's not like you can communicate with somebody across the field from you.
Yep. So like you're going out there, the corn, if it's corn, it's likely taller than you. You're pressing it down, so you can't kind of peek over and be like, "Oh, the design over there is looking good."
Yeah.
That's another like downfall of this theory of you can't necessarily communicate with someone or just be able to look over and see if it's looking
Lining
perfect.
up.
Yeah. When certain circles appear and no humans own up to creating it, it is done perfectly without error. So there have been many crop circles that show up one day. There's not someone going, I did that, and
Correct.
they look great. When you have humans owning up to it, you can kind of see some of those details that aren't as perfect as some of the other ones.
Yeah. But no, I do remember watching the documentary where the guys had come on and they're like, oh, like we used this ski and they showed them how
Yeah.
it would work. And then they showed like, okay, you step here. And then it showed like, okay, it pushed down stuff.
Yeah.
And like then they showed us like a finished product and it looked damn good. I mean,
It does look good.
You could definitely mistake it for an actual, I don't want to say real crop circle, but like something that's not man-made.
And the one other side piece I wanted to go off with this on is a lot of people have suspicion or theorize that these 2 men were paid by the government to
do
cover up
this?
the fact that aliens are coming here so the public is not scared.
Okay.
That we need you to do this, take one for the team here, say that you're creating all of these, we'll give you the tools that you need to create it to show the public that you can do it.
Yeah.
Because we can't have them knowing that aliens are here.
Okay.
So that was kind of
I could see that.
it could have been a cover up.
And I mean, since then, like the government has come out and said like, yes, aliens exist.
And the really hard piece with this is sometimes these designs weren't happening in farmers' fields. You would like these pilots were flying over fields in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
And they're happening in fields. And like civilization is nowhere near it.
Well, it's like,
and
this
I'm sorry.
might be getting ahead of myself, but
Yeah.
like, isn't aliens craft that large that like that's where it landed and it left that imprint, or is this that it flies over the top of it and makes that print as it goes? That's
That's
big
a good
thing.
question.
I'm like, let's say that they fly in a UFO because that's what most people believe.
Yeah.
When the UFO lands, is it really that large and it leaves that print?
That's kind of how I interpret it.
That's kind of how I did too, but I'm like, that's a really freaking big piece
But I
to be
also
flying. And then you hear like pilots talking like, oh, we see this flying in the sky.
yes,
They're never that large.
They're not. But I'm like, okay,
Because
are
they
there
always call them like a tic tac. Mind you, they're far away from them and they move very,
Yeah.
very quickly. But
are there other ones
you
we're maybe
would-
missing?
you would know if it was the size of a farm field.
Yeah.
Because it'd be huge. It'd be like a blimp
But I'm also, do they have technology that can
to make it appear smaller.
appear smaller, or you don't see it at all?
Well, maybe.
Like a cloaking device?
Maybe.
I mean, I know that sounds very Star Wars, but I mean, there are eventually I would
higher
assume
intelligences that
higher intelligences have different types of cloaking devices that there are big ships coming in and we wouldn't even know it.
yeah,
We
probably.
wouldn't catch it on radar because we don't have the technology here to do that. But like I said, to have them appear in random fields in the middle of nowhere, who's
Where it's
going?
not like they're seeking attention.
Yeah, like who's going out on their Saturday afternoon and be like, I'm making a crop circle 200 miles from civilization? It just doesn't make sense to me.
You're like, that sounds fun.
The one other piece of information before we move on to theory number 3 is why would a farmer potentially want to ruin part of their crop? That's your livelihood. That affects your income. That affects your bottom line. Why would you go out there, step down your crop? Because I'm sorry, these human-made ones, the crops snap.
They break them.
You lose crop, and these aren't small things. It's
Yeah.
not like you're ruining 10 pieces of corn.
I mean, I can buy into the government paid them off.
That was a theory that I was like, damn. Like they brought these two men
Well, especially
in, and
because it was still pretty early in this whole crop circle
yeah,
scandal.
yep,
That like I could understand the government going to these guys saying, "Hey, you guys are farmers. You
Yeah.
have farm fields. You're gonna say you're doing these. You're
And
doing
my-
all of these."
my thing is, why did you come out 15 years later and be like, oh, we're now confessing to all these ones that we did?
Yeah,
And I think that maybe the government was like, we have some scared people, and they're a
you're
little.
gonna help us.
We need some people to do that, and we think you're the right men for the job.
Yeah.
Just kind of, I teeter on that one. So my third and final theory
Is the one everybody believes.
is, of course, aliens.
I mean, when you hear crop circle, the first thing I think of is aliens.
Yeah, I don't think human. I think alien. Immediately.
Yeah.
No hesitation.
And I think if you ask most people, they think that as well.
I would assume. And mind you, you sit there and then you have these researchers that go, nope, it's humans. It's all humans. And I'm like, are you just trying to feed us that line?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of people that don't believe in aliens. So, I mean,
Yeah.
I guess they need to have their explanation for it, but I'm sorry, I'm a full believer in aliens.
I just feel that it's very
It can't just be us to be in this entire universe.
I just feel like it's very arrogant of us to believe that we're the
Only ones.
the only life form. I think there's definitely intelligent beings, and guess what? They might not be in our galaxy. They could be galaxies or universes away, but
And they might not be like a form similar to ours. They might
Yeah.
look very, very different. Hell, they might be microscopic. I
it
mean,
could be a freaking worm. Like,
Yeah.
who knows? But I think it's arrogant of us to believe that we are the only life form in the entire universe. I don't even know where I was going with that. But yeah, so aliens. I feel like aliens come into every podcast theory, but I feel like this is the first podcast that it could be a convincing theory.
I am a full shipper of aliens.
So the alien theory is very believable to me. It's my favorite theory in this podcast. And there's quite a bit of evidence that kind of points to this could be aliens.
Okay.
First off, let's kind of state the obvious. These designs that the crop circles have are almost too complex or extremely difficult for humans to create. Could it be done? Yes. I don't think it could be done in an evening.
And could it be done to the extent that they're done? I just don't think so.
I feel like we would need to go out there with like technology. Like,
I mean, and some of these are so intricate.
I know. The design can be so microscopically small.
Yeah.
It's insane. Are you looking up a design?
Yeah, I gotta look up and see one.
So when we assess these, it's kind of almost impossible for these humans to create them the way they said that they have.
Well, and a lot of them, like, you can extrapolate meaning out of them.
And we get to that. But yeah, when we go into the whole human side of it, I just feel like there's too much room for error. So that kind of leads us to think that are aliens creating them? Is it their spacecraft? I feel like it's an extraterrestrial somehow. Whether it's their spacecraft or them physically, I don't know.
Yeah.
So let's talk about a design that appeared in fields on August 15th in 2002 in Westchester, England. I hope I said that right.
Yep, Westchester.
A crop circle is discovered. Technically, 2 crop circles are discovered. The first one kind of takes the shape of the head of what we would assume to be an extraterrestrial,
Like an alien head?
like an alien head. My favorite is as I was watching this one video and I was trying to gather some information, he was like, oh, it's a gray alien head. I'm like, how can the fuck can you say it's gray? It's in a cornfield. It's like yellow, but
Yeah.
whatever. It was in the shape of what we could assume to be the head of an alien. The second circle was kind of off to the right, maybe a little bit diagonal from it, but in the same field. It took shape of a circle, and inside of this large circle, there were numerous little dots. When researchers, scientists, code observers looked at this circle, they believed it to be binary code.
Okay.
So when they decoded this binary code, they were able to piece together the following message. And I will warn you, it's kind of confusing. It says, beware the bearers of false gifts and their broken promises. Much pain, but still time. There is good out there. We oppose deceivers. Conduit closing.
Conduit?
Conduit closing. Thank you. That's it. It's a very short and choppy message. Very short, incomplete sentences, giving some meaning, but kind of meaning that still now, 22 years later, we have no idea what they're trying to tell us.
Okay.
Like, okay, beware of the bearers of false gifts and their broken promises. Are we talking about like people here on Earth and like countries against countries? Are we talking about extraterrestrials eventually coming to Earth and we need to be aware of them? I don't know. And then it says, much pain, but still time.
Well, that's because we're ruining the Earth. Maybe there's still time we can save it.
I mean, maybe. But like I said, this is 22 years later and we're still kind of like, what the hell does this mean?
Yeah.
Another piece of evidence is a circle that appeared after we sent a message into space in 1974.
Bro, I am all for this one.
So, we sent the following message into space using radio signals.
From that big ass telescope thinger.
Yeah, and I forgot where it's located.
And we sent like certain things of like, we use 1 through 10. We use this. Okay.
Yep. I didn't get that in depth, but we did. We sent things out like.
They sent a crop circle back that literally.
Shut the fuck up. Stop talking.
Oh my God.
Stop talking. I'll let you be all excited in like 2 minutes here. So we sent that in, and what we talked about is how our solar system was set up. So like the planets we have, how far from the sun we are. We talked about our alphabet, our numeric system. We talked about what people here on Earth looked like. We kind of drew like a little picture, kind of like a stick figure. And it wasn't until sometime later, I mean, like you had said, maybe quicker than we had expected, we ended up getting a response back. This response came in 2001.
Wasn't it in the form of a crop circle?
It was in the form of a crop square.
I was going to say, it was a big square, and they had like all of the info kind of responding in the same way.
Yeah. The response came in England because they all, for some reason, come there.
Well, wasn't it near the telescope that they used or the infrared thing? I thought it was like right next to it.
I think you need to shut the fuck up. Because you know more about this than I do, apparently.
Oh, yeah.
So 2 designs were given in response, I guess you could say, to the message that we sent. One looking as if it was a self-portrait of the sender. And so it kind of just looked like an alien head again. Kind of-ish. Like a body, maybe.
So is that like its own whole crop circle?
Yes. There's one that is essentially like a self-portrait. And then we have another one that was in the exact same format we sent our message.
Correct.
So like it's so hard to explain not having a visual in front of me, and I'll try to put this in the YouTube video and on our Instagram. Plug in Instagram again. They sent it in like a scroll, essentially. Yep. It was like in written format down, and one of the lines was our solar system, and like they had the planets lined out. They responded with how their solar system looks like. So clearly they're in a different solar system.
Okay.
They're not from here because their solar system layout was very different.
Okay.
It showed they weren't like in a straight line like we were, and the planets differed in size and kind of shape.
Okay.
In their response, they also had another picture of like what their body looks like, and I will say their body is very similar to that of a human.
Yeah.
So kind of what we've depicted aliens to look like. A different structure of DNA. So when we sent ours out, we had what our DNA looks like.
The double helix,
yeah.
the bases, the phosphates, the sugars.
Yeah. So for those of you that are not smart ass like my sister, most people don't know what a strand of DNA looks like, but it's kind of like a swirly thing that kind of connects with like a ladder.
Think of like a twisted ladder.
Yeah.
It's like a ladder, but you grab both ends and just spun it.
Yeah. So they sent back what their DNA looks like, and it was like vastly different. But they said like if that was in line number 2, they responded in line number 2 with what their DNA looks like. Yeah. So they kind of responded in order of what we sent ours in. And they sent an image of the antenna that they used to communicate. We used a radio antenna to communicate our message out to them. And then where we like depicted what our radio antenna looked like in the message, they depicted what their antenna looks like back to us. The one very unique thing about this is a year prior to us receiving this big full message, we had received the exact same picture of an antenna next to a radio antenna in a field. So there was a radio antenna at like a building somewhere.
Okay.
There was a farm field or a grass field next to it, and the year prior, that exact antenna picture of the antenna they used appeared in that field next to our radio antenna.
It's like they were kind of testing it.
Yeah, it's almost like they weren't able to fully communicate the full message, so they kind of were like, we're going to send part of it, and then a year later in the field, we got the entire message with that exact antenna.
Was it in the exact same field?
I believe it was, yes.
Okay.
I want to say when I was looking over that,
if I was that farmer, I'd be like, fuck, again?
I can't keep replanting these areas.
Yeah,
and mind you, when they came a year later with both the crop circles or crop squares, because they came in like a rectangle shape, it was a mass majority of this field. So
Oh, they were huge.
they fucked over that farmer for 2 full seasons. But I just thought it was kind of almost spooky that like this antenna shape came a year prior and the exact same thing came a year later.
Yep.
Just kind of almost makes me feel uneasy.
Yeah.
Do you want to have anything you want to add on that one before I jump into like the next piece?
Like the next line that they talked about?
That was all the lines. Was there anything I missed?
Oh, I thought they talked about like their number system.
I know we did. They might have, and I might not have just included that. So go ahead and talk about it.
Do you know what the name of that crop circle was?
I didn't write it down. I just know it was communicated through radio signal from NASA. Something I'm going to add in here. I don't know where I'm going to plop it in. But this radio signal that was sent out was sent by NASA here in the US. And one thing I found very suspicious is that when we received a response, NASA goes, "We don't know what you're talking about. We never sent a message." But like there is documented proof in NASA document that this message was sent out in hopes to get a response. And then like when we finally got a response, NASA was like, "What?"
Did it look like this?
Yes. So feel free to like add anything that I might have missed because it was kind of a quick little jump in with research and I know you know a lot more on this area.
Okay, so we had the numbers 1 through 10.
Yep, we had the numeric system.
The atomic numbers of elements: hydrogen, carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, phosphorus. So like the big ones that make up all of our living
Yeah.
things. I do remember that we said that, I want to say we said like those were the most important one. I think when they sent their response back that like,
We couldn't interpret
and
their
no, we could, but like the elements that they said were the most important to them weren't the elements that we used
which
on
would
a
just
daily.
further prove that they're in a different solar system because a lot of the elements we have here are not, I would assume would probably be likely very different.
Yeah, and they say they had the formulas for chemicals of like nucleotides and DNA.
Okay. Like I said, it was kind of for some of this, I'm like, I'm not super familiar with it.
The estimated number of DNA nucleotides in the human genome. So, like, how many nucleotides, how many pieces of DNA made up our
Okay.
genes.
Yeah.
The dimensions, like the physical height of a person, average.
Yeah.
The population at the time was 4 billion.
Yeah.
Solar system. And then the radio telescope.
Yeah.
So I think the only thing we missed was the elements. But I do remember
Okay.
them sending the elements back. And their elements were very different. I mean, they were still elements that we knew,
Okay.
but I think their most like important one was like phosphorus, which
Okay.
it's on our list, but it's not the most prominent
That we
one
use.
that
Yeah.
we use for everything.
Yeah, and for those of you that don't understand the science terminology, don't worry, you're not alone. But it was just a very in-depth message, and the fact that it was responded to us line for line.
Yeah, and like they understood what we were saying, and then were able
Yes.
to make an intelligent response back with
Yes.
similar things.
And then kind of going off of that, using that radio signal, I will say sound is a huge piece in this next one. Okay, so this is I think my final piece of evidence here. Okay, so my final piece of evidence, and bear with me as I explain this. I'm going to try to explain it so everyone understands it. We have satellites and different technologies that we've sent into space to study space or aid us in that research of space. Some of these technologies that we have sent out have recorded the sound of Saturn's rings.
Okay.
Because Saturn's rings do make noise. If you didn't know that, they do make noise. And we've sent these technologies, we've recorded it, and when you bring it back, we have advanced audio equipment that you can watch the sound move in 3D. It's really, really cool.
Okay.
When we look at crop circles and we take the design of the crop circle and we input it into an advanced audio creation or an audio maker, it is the exact same sounds we are seeing on Saturn's rings.
Really?
The exact same pitch, the exact same frequency. Like on the dot. Like there's no differentiation. I said that word right.
What do you call?
I practiced it before I came down here. Now I'm going to have to cut that out. But like there is no mistake. When you put that into an advanced audio maker, it is the exact same sound of Saturn's rings.
How do you put a crop circle into an audio maker?
You essentially take the pattern and you take it's like inputting a picture in pattern. Because you look at when you record a sound, it makes a pattern.
Okay.
It makes a picture of what the sound looks like. And
Like
I know that's
like the sound waves.
yes.
Okay.
But you can also put it in a picture form and plug that into an advanced audio thing or machine, advanced audio machine, and it can output a sound.
Okay.
And the sounds are on the spot the exact same.
Weird.
So people are kind of like, what's going on there? Like, why do and it's like almost every crop circle,
Okay.
with the exception of some of these ones that have been debunked by humans.
Yeah.
The one thing I found very interesting is when humans were questioned when they were like, oh, I made this crop circle. And then they're questioned on like, oh, how did you manage to put this pattern that it's the exact same sound frequency and pitch? They would just sit there and stare at you and be like, huh? And then,
What are you
like,
even talking about?
when questioned even further of like, how did you decide to come up with this design? How did you create the design when you were out in the field? They would just sit there and have no answers because it just showed that they didn't make it.
Okay.
Because they couldn't say like, I use this tool to create the crop circle.
Yeah.
So it just kind of further shows that like, I don't think a human could have done this.
Okay.
It would lead
Especially
us.
to have that type of things happening in the background
Yeah.
of like there's also ulterior meanings to it,
Yes.
and that you can figure out other things about it based on what program you plug it into is
Yes.
just crazy.
And then like these researchers that study crop circles, they are always plugging in them into different machines, like sound output, patterns we're seeing in the universe, things like that. And so for it to match something that is already in space kind of just leads us to believe like why would you take Saturn's rings
And make that your sound.
and make
And
that the sound
how
you're
many
implementing?
people know that Saturn's rings actually make noise?
That was a fun.
Because
I
I
mean,
didn't.
I was aware of that only because I learned about that in college. I took
Yeah.
a class because I love space. But yeah, they do make noise as they move through space, which is super cool. And if you haven't heard the sound, I would highly recommend looking
And
it
mind
up.
you, the people that would know that are the people living in space.
Yeah, that's the thing.
That or like hardcore scientists.
Yeah, exactly. So,
And I doubt a scientist is wasting their time out there making a crop circle.
yeah. No. So is there an alien out there taking that sound and bringing it down here? Is there hidden meaning? Is there something we're not finding?
Yeah.
What is going on with that?
Super weird.
Yeah. There's one other little piece of evidence that
Did you ever touch on like radioactivity?
no, you want to?
Well, from what I know,
Mhm.
in all of the things I've seen about these,
Yeah.
when after a crop circle happens,
Yeah.
there have been many scientists that have gone out and like taken readings at these sites,
Oh, yeah.
and they are like hella radioactive.
I don't know why I didn't put that in here because I did hear when I watched videos that
Like
was
they
everywhere.
do radioactive readings
Yep.
in the areas that are smushed,
Yep.
and they are like super radioactive. I mean, like I don't want to say it's dangerous to go standing in one, but like
But
you're being
there's-
exposed to a lot more radiation.
Yeah.
Plus, in areas where I don't know if it's where they've landed or even where crop circles have happened, but
Yeah.
in areas where like crop circles have happened, the things that are around them, like I think it was on a tree that one of them had, like
Yeah.
the bark on that part of a tree.
It's gone. Doesn't it melt off?
Well, like I don't know if it melts off, but like the bark is like so much more healthy, or like the
Oh.
tree grows so much better on that side. I don't
Okay.
remember what the specifics were, but like the plants did so much better
Well, it's like
for
that
the ones
Mother
that were
Earth
right
piece.
around it. Yeah,
They
like
say,
that's
like,
what kind of connects with it.
It just thrives, which why?
And I
Like,
don't know if let's say we connected with the aliens one, like do
Yeah.
the aliens emit a chemical or something
That
out
we
of
don't
their
have?
ship that make it
yeah.
flourish?
It's very suspicious to me. It's just very weird. Like, what is going on?
Yeah.
There's one little piece of evidence, and take it with a grain of salt because it could be debunked in certain ways. The last thing I want to include is that there have been underwater crop circles found.
Really?
Mm-hmm. So,
Well, have you seen the UFO that made water boil where it went underneath it?
no, the fuck?
Oh yeah, they think that there's like a hub inside the ocean for
Okay, well, that's part of this. Is
yeah,
that
for UFOs because it literally went underwater. The water boiled,
never
and then
seen
all of a
that.
sudden it like was underneath the water.
Yeah, I've never seen that. But there is the rumor that there's extraterrestrials living beneath the ocean surface.
Yeah.
And the rumor is that's why we stopped looking in the ocean.
Oh really?
Because we've stopped researching the ocean. We no longer are
And
trying to
there's
go.
so much stuff in the ocean we don't know
And
about.
people are like, why did we stop that research? Like, what's going on?
But we don't even have the funding to like run our government, let alone go research an ocean.
Yeah. So initially, these crop circles were found in Japan. They were
Okay.
found off the coast of one of their islands.
The underwater ones?
Yes.
Okay.
They were watching them and they're like, how the hell are these kind of coming about? And they kind of found maybe one avenue that you could go down, like maybe this is it.
Do we know, was it like shallow water that it was happening
No,
in? Like could
it
you
was
see
deep.
it?
They had to put scuba gear on.
So how did they know that they were down there?
Scuba divers found them and they're like, what the fuck is this?
Okay.
So then they had research teams get on this immediately because they're like, how are these being designed?
Yeah.
Like we were seeing them happen up in fields and they're like, they're happening in water now?
Yeah.
Well, then you had some research that are like, it's this puffer fish that is just in Japan. And like there's a video of a pufferfish like making it, but not to the extent that some of these pictures are.
Okay.
But then the weird part is these underground water crop circles started appearing throughout the entire world.
Okay.
And this fish is not in the
It's
entire
only
world.
in Japan.
It's
Or in that area.
What's the word? Indigenous? It's located in that area.
Native.
It's native to that place. So they initially were describing it like this pufferfish is doing it, but then like they started kind of popping up in other places. People are like, but that pufferfish doesn't live here.
Okay.
So it, like I said, take it with a grain of salt. They have appeared underwater. Maybe it is a fish, maybe it's not. Like I said, there's a lot of information out there that kind of leads that maybe there are aliens living
Underwater as well.
underwater. Like we just don't know.
I mean, I feel like they're able to evolve and adapt better than we are, so.
Yeah. So I guess that leads me to, what do you believe? Are crop circles a message from Mother Earth? Are they simply just humans made and they're going out in fields and making them themselves? Or is it a form of communication coming from an alien life form?
I fully believe it's the alien.
I feel like there have been humans that have attempted it.
Correct, and I feel
Yeah.
like it's proven that humans have made some.
Yes. Yep.
But not to the intricacies and
Mhm.
not to the lack of, I guess, hurting of their crops, lack of destruction.
Yeah. Yeah. I would definitely, I lean more towards alien
Yeah.
because I don't
And I've
know.
always, you say crop circle, I think alien.
Yeah. I don't know how a
Humans
human,
would be
yeah.
able to make that intricate of a design without destroying their crops.
There's too much human error involved
Correct.
that you're not going to have it perfect
Well,
like that.
especially to have a perfect circle, to have it make the noise of Saturn's rings, all
Yeah.
of those extra things.
That was so weird to me. And then I'm like, okay, even if we buy into the underwater piece, are we sending scuba divers down there? How
Well,
far are we going to take that?
And my other thing is that one where we sent a message using that
oh, yeah,
that
the radio
satellite,
signal.
and then we got the response back with like the different solar system and the
Yes.
different
Yep.
elements that they find important and their
Yep.
DNA. Like, how would we explain those?
Yeah. It just, things don't line up for me to believe that this is human made.
Yeah.
For me, I lean heavily into theory 3, the aliens.
Same.
So
But I always have.
Yeah.
I'm an alien believer through and through, especially when it comes to crop circles.
I would have to agree with you on that one.
So
yeah, you guys
it
tell
was
us.
a good episode.
I was really excited to present because I'm like, Sammy's gonna like this one.
I love crop circles. They
Yeah.
are always fun.
It's an interesting idea. I don't know if I want to see one up close in person because
I would.
it's scary.
Like I said, I don't want to see it being, well, I would want to see it being made, but I want to have them guarantee that they will not beam me up and do tests on me.
I don't know if they can promise you that. All right, guys, tell us what you think. Please remember to subscribe to our podcast and leave a review. Like us on Facebook and Instagram at Conspiracy Podcast 1. And remember to tune in for next week's episode, which will be posted on Wednesday.
Bye, guys.
See ya.